Broadcasting from Salisbury University campus, this is WSDL Ocean City, NPR News Talk 90.7. Putting Delmarva first. Stay tuned for Delmarva Today with your host, Don Rush.
An Eastern Shore activist turns into a political challenger. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. Kirkland Hall has been a prominent activist and former president of the NAACP in Somerset County. Now he's decided to challenge two-term incumbent Republican Charles Otto for the 38A district seat in Maryland's House of Delegates. But the incumbent Republican has trounced two former Democratic challengers by nearly 2-to-1 margin. Well, this morning we have Kirkland in our studios, and welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, by the way, before we get started with the local material, what is your own reaction to the events that unfolded in Las Vegas?
I think it's so sad and tragic that our country has become so violent, and people, for some reason, whether mentally ill or hatred for mankind, succumb to such atrocity of just killing people random that you don't know and virtually no reason. And I just feel for the families and the children of those who lost their parents. It's just sad for our country.
So turning to your bid to unseat Otto, as I mentioned a moment ago, he's won twice by a nearly 2-to-1 margin. What has made you decide to go ahead and turn once more from activist into political challenger?
Well, one of the things, although he is an incumbent, and I realize he's going to be a tough gentleman to beat. He defeated two other challengers, again by a large margin. But I think I bring something different to the table. One, based on my research, looking at Somerset County, it's still the poorest county in the state of Maryland. Worcester County, which is also covered, ranks number 11 in the county. However, after the Ocean City season, it ranks close to the bottom, just like Somerset. So I think some new ideas need to be brought forth on how to change the plight of our community people. And my goal would be to work to change the quality of life. Again, Somerset has been the poorest county in the state of Maryland for a number of years. That means that the motto of Somerset is Semper Idem, always the same. So now we've got to change that because individuals are looking for some other way of living as opposed to hands out all the time, depending on social service, depending on handouts from churches and other groups. I think most people now want to be able to take care of their own families.
Well, because I was looking at it, I think Somerset County, which is a big chunk of the district that you're going to be running in, had something like a 25% poverty rate. And I've talked to a number of people over the years with all kinds of ideas for economic development. We had one time a proposed ferry at one point for Chrisfield. How do you change that? Is there something in the DNA of the Somerset County and part of Worcester County that just is not moving it forward? Why do we have this?
Well, I think you have to change the mindset of people. And what happens too many times, those in charge, those that are successful, are trying to make decisions for those that do not have. It's time to bring those individuals to the table and ask them what are their concerns. And once we get a nucleus of what their concerns are, we can develop a plan. We've been developing a plan before we talk to those that are at the bottom. For example, look at the educational system that we have. Is that system preparing our citizens for green jobs? Is that education preparing our children or youth to go into jobs of not only agriculture but in plumbing, refrigeration, air conditioning, those areas, masonry? Those are the areas that I think that we have left untapped, and why so many young children are left out in the cold. Everybody does not want to go to college. But we got Salisbury State, we've got Ward Community College, we've got UMES, three institutions, fine institutions of higher learning in our community. And we have not yet begun to tap that until this past year when Dr. Hoy at War Community College decided to give young children with 2-point average an opportunity to go to school tuition free. Not only the War Tech needs, other schools need to come up with some kind of innovative ideas so that other individuals can at least go to school, develop a profession so they become employable. We have too many people that are just not employable in our county because of a number of reasons. And also because of that, we have a large drug problem. When people are left idle, home all day long, bored, nothing to do, we succumb to alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs, which is also a tremendous problem in our communities.
So, I mean, as a matter of fact, I remember a few years ago we were talking about the lack of representation, for instance, Somerset County when it came to minority representation, particularly African-American representation. African-American community is something like in the 40% mark in terms of the people, the population there. And one of the things that was talked about was the fact that many of the kids that go to, for instance, a UMES, historically black college, they go there even from the area and then they leave. They just disappear. And that they cannot attract people not only into the private sector, but into the public sector. What do you do about that, particularly as a delegate? I mean, is there some resistance to more money funding? Does it require more funding for an institution like UMES? What's the mechanism, you think?
Again, I think it's a mindset. Somerset, for so long, and I'm quite sure parts of Worcester County, families tend to look out for family members. If there are jobs available, again, human nature, you can look out for your son or daughter or granddaughter. And if there's something left over, you look out for other people to ensure that you're following the laws of the land. But again, there are not too many employable opportunities. We got the prison. When the prison was first brought into the county, I was opposed to it because I knew what was going to happen. I knew when the prison was constructed, not only to provide jobs, you got to fill those beds. And based on tradition, those beds can be filled by the minority population. And that came into fruition. But after they get out of prison, then what did they do? The tables are stacked against us. If they got court fees, they got court fees. They got to pay support, they got to pay support. Whatever fee they didn't pay prior to going to prison, they've got to pay it. They get their salaries going. So how can they buy a home? How can they how can they rent a home? How can they get a car? How can they pay for insurance? How can they buy food? How can they pay utilities? So the debt is stacked against them. So now we have the prison. We've got to use that to our advantage. Now they're having difficulty even hiring correction officers. They're offering bonuses to get people to work. But again, another problem. So many people in our community have drug problems. So they're not going to qualify to work at the correction institution. So again, it's about looking at the mental state of people in our community. We've got to even start in schools, educating our kids about, I'm from the area, and I've had several job offers during my tenure at UMES, but I chose to stay. I chose to stay because I wanted to contribute something to the community in which raised me, which nurtured me, and I felt that I've done the best that I could. But now I decided to go in another direction.
Now, of course, obviously, agriculture is a big industry in Somerset County, and particularly the poultry industry. And we've had in the recent years these large chicken houses that have been popping up and near residential areas that certainly are in the agricultural sector, in the agricultural designated areas, but nonetheless, people did not expect to see. Matter of fact, some of those people who object to them, I saw Trump signs in front of. So this is not some kind of liberal or conservative. There's the people who are concerned about this. Where do you stand on these kinds of large chicken houses, particularly in relationship to where they are located? And is this just simply a matter of local zoning, or do you think a state legislature has something to offer here?
I think both. I think one thing we need to concern ourselves with smart growth. I would not want a poultry house next door to me. So I think the thing to do is, again, get everybody to the table, and we've got to mediate this situation. Work with the poultry house, poultry industry, and the citizens. For an example, a few years ago, I was able to bring a family that had been divided for over 70 years, the lynching of George Onwood. I, along with other individuals, were able to bring the nephew and granddaughter of the elderly lady who said that George Onwood, African-American male, that accosted her to the table with his nephew. We had dinner. We talked of ways to mending and reconciliating that particular situation. So the same thing need to happen with the poultry industry. We realize they want to make money. We realize we live in a capitalist society. But it's got to be even care. We got to make sure that our citizens can live in a place that they choose to stay without having to smell the poultry houses day in and day out. And the question I ask them all, would you want to build a chicken house close to your home? And we take that, if we think about that, then we find those open areas where it's not populated by citizens and build them there as opposed to next to individual houses. And I love chicken.
Do you think that the poultry industry, I mean, it obviously has offered up some regulations which some of the people in Somerset County, for example, do not feel are adequate. Do you think that the poultry industry is being resistant to moving further than what they've done? I mean, and how they view these people, even though they're just the average resident?
Well, in the game of life, individuals in business are going to try to negotiate with local politicians, regulations, and ordinances that satisfy what they're trying to do, where the citizen does not have an opportunity to lobby. And we know that they're going to donate funds to certain politicians who are going to favor their particular views. And that's where the imbalance falls in. And that's why it's not fair to the local citizenry that lives in that community. Because all they can do is protest. They protest, they protest, they protest. And yet, it's politicians who design the ordinances who make the final decisions.
By the way, how do you balance, for instance, concern for the environment and, say, not only agriculture, but also the watermen? Because there's this conflict that seems to be set up between trying to preserve the environment and even clean up the bay on the one hand, and on the other hand, there seems to be some resistance, certainly in a part of agriculture, but also watermen saying, well, wait a minute, we're not necessarily the problem, and there seems a real struggle between those two poles. How do you bridge that gap?
Okay. The only way is discussion. Everybody, the leaders of the watermen, the farmers, poultry, and citizens need to be brought to a round table. Every year they have a meeting in Ocean City of all the local officials. Again, I don't know what gets done. They've never been there. I don't know what problems they solve. But they're spending money.
Okay.
I don't know what problems they solve. However, we need to do the same thing with people that are impacted by the pollution.
Do you think though that both sides have become so entrenched that you can't bridge that gap? I mean, I hear a tremendous resistance saying we're not the problem, or that you're taking my livelihood away, and obviously environmentalists saying, well, no, but I've got these studies, and then we get this conflict about one study as opposed to another study. I mean, it seems to me that divide is deeply, deeply dug.
Well, again, I think that's the mindset of the populace. When someone feels threatened that you're going to take my livelihood from me, it calls for panic. But again, there has to be a way that we can develop an even medium to look at the watermen. And I just read a report that the crab industry has skyrocketed this year. The oyster industry has done better over the previous years. So look at where we are and ask the woman, how did you get there? Was it through some ordinances or some change in what you did in order for this increase to occur? Let's look at the farmers. Look at the fertilizers and all those type of preservatives they're putting in the soil. Is that helping you to produce a better crop? Does that impact the water rate? Let me give you an example. At UMES, I went to a school called Somerset, and there's a water river, Minokan River, that runs in the middle of the campus. In high school, after running cross country with 2.5 miles, the team used to stop at that river, and there was a little small waterfall. We used to drink that water. We used to drink that water. Now you look at it now, I don't think fish even want to swim in that water today. So that tells you that there's a problem, and we've just got to come in with cool heads, control our temper, and not just concern about ourselves, but it's about the entire community. If this group succeeds, this group fails, we haven't accomplished anything. So it's a matter of everybody coming to the table and work for the betterment of every citizen that lives in that county.
By the way, where are you on something like offshore oil drilling, which I don't think actually necessarily touches where your district is, but nonetheless it's part of Worcester County, which is one of the parts that your district represents. Do you think there should be a ban on offshore oil drilling?
Well, I think we need to look at the production of the different fuels that we have, depending on what they're actually looking for and trying to get. But I just don't believe that we need to disturb every part of nature that God has allowed us to enjoy. And again, most of it is fun. It's money driven. It's not that if the resources they show, it's money. If we actually needed resources in order to survive, then you may have to make some decisions. But if it's just for the revenue for different companies, no, I don't think so.
What about wind power? I mean, obviously there's a lot of drive to say have lots of wind power, for instance, particularly in your district on the Eastern Shore. Where are you on that?
Well, it's natural. It's natural fuel.
You think that's the thing you want to move forward with?
I think it's natural fuel. If we could find find places that they could put up the solar the windmills and that would not disturb the residents, I have no problem with that. I look at the solar industry. I've been riding around the state, looking at even around the county, looking at different solar farms that they have. Again, if it's not polluting the air and it's helping the residents, we can't. I'd be a fool to be opposed to it.
By the way, now, of course, you are a Democrat. I believe you mentioned a moment ago you're chair, actually, the Democratic Central Committee in Somerset County, I think it is. What's your view of Governor Larry Hogan, a Republican, who many have said, maybe he's of the opposite party, but boy, he's certainly paying a lot more attention to us than, say, maybe some of the previous Democratic governors. What's your view?
Well, Governor Hogan was well schooled. His father, I think, was a politician. He had a chance to learn from the youth what politicians actually did. I don't believe that just because I'm a Democrat, I should not concern myself with all the citizenry that I represent. And I think that Governor Hogan is following that suit. He recognized the need. I mean, if he's governor, if Somerset County and other counties continue to go down, that's on his record. He has to leave that. He didn't do anything with Somerset County or Worcester County or Wacomico County. So again, he has great advisement, he has resources, and he's saying to be, well, I never met him, but what I've heard, he has a concern for those have-nots, and I think that is a point that I like.
Do you think we've benefited from him being governor here on the Eastern Shore?
Well, I'm looking at the few projects that we've had thus far. I must say that we made some strides, but I have a long ways to go.
A long ways to go. So in terms of taxes and that kind of thing, where are you in terms of where you see the budget going for Maryland? We still come up with some shortfalls. I know the Governor Larry Hogan likes to have some tax cuts and cut something from the budget. Where do you see that balance? Are there anything areas that you think we should cut? Are there any particular areas that perhaps maybe a tax increase might be a good thing? What's your sense about that?
Well, historically, politicians have always tried to lobby for more money in their pockets. And I believe politicians are servants. And I do not believe that they should make hundreds of thousands of dollars to be a servant. And I think this is what has happened. But I think we definitely need to channel more money into the education system. Education and the different facets of the system, that's what's going to change our communities. If you got a young man that drops out, or a young lady that drops out of school in the 6th or 7th grade, look how many resources they're going to drain for these other agencies that are contingent on taxes. So we need to rethink the direction that this state is going. Look at our programs. I've been an educator, again, 40-some years. And I can see the difference that it made with students that I've taught, and students that come to the university, students that come to the hospital, even my own children. So we need to challenge more money in education. Again, child care is another area I want to bring up. If a family is working, it would cost almost a week's salary to have your child in child care. So we've got so many unregulated areas that are causing concerns and they're causing people to work 2 and 3 jobs. And again, working those 2 or 3 jobs, then all that taxes that are taken out, it's an issue. I think we need to go back and look at the entire tax system and see what's priority and then go from there.
Now, you're running obviously against Charles Otto. He says that he's done a lot for the district, that he's working hard for the people there. Points to the carbon monoxide, for instance, detectors and so on. He's been involved with that, as well as obviously advocating for agriculture. I think I saw a quote where you felt like he hadn't done anything at all. Why would you say that he hasn't performed? I mean, because he'll point to a lot of things that he's done.
I'm going to get like Donald Trump. The media has a tendency to twist my words.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I said that I have not been aware of what he's done because there's no communication of what bills he had been associated with. Carbon monoxide. Let me take care of that first. That was initiated by yours truly. The day that I was told that a family had passed away in the community, I thought the worst. I thought the father had taken the life of his children and committed suicide. So I immediately went to the site of the home, and I talked to the fire marshal, I talked to the sheriff and others, and they told me what had happened. I did not see a politician around. Commissioner Mathias had called me from a distance, let me know what's happened, and I went there to serve his eyes, Commissioner Mathias, Commissioner District 1, to see what had happened. I went up that night and I found out that I knew 2 of the children. We had bought Christmas gifts for them at one time, and my 2 of my adopted children went to class with them. And my youngest son said, "Dad, you heard about Trevor." She was the youngest one. And it brought tears to my eyes just to think about what happened, that it could have been preventable. And then visualizing watching put them kids in a pound of truck like they were logs, like they, were not human at all. And I called Commissioner Mathias. I said, "Pastor Mathias," I said, "Look, that got to be something we can do." I said, so I started investigating. And then from there, I called Senator Mathias, and asked for his direction. And he took it on immediately. He called Delmarva Power. He set up a meeting with us with Delmarva Power. We checked and found out why they cut off the electricity. It was on the winter month, end of the winter months. It was cold at night. And all I could see was the father trying to take care of the children, working part-time with 7 children, with no other resources. So again, we looked at the policies from Delmarva Power, made some recommendations. Mr. John Allen, the vice president, felt that there needed to be some changes. Shree Samper Hughes, Waukama County delegate, took up the charge and worked with us along with Senator Mathias. I testified in Annapolis on 3 occasions, and then we got the state law. So he did vote in favor of it.
Yes, he did.
He did vote in favor of it, as well as the county commissioners who supported us, the chief of police in Chrisfield, Somerset County Sheriff, President and Town Police. All of them wrote letters of support. So I give him credit. He did support it. Okay.
We've been talking with Kirkland Hall. He is running, of course, as a Democrat in the 38A district seat in the Maryland House of Delegates. Appreciate you stopping by, and we'll certainly check in from time to time, see how the election goes.
Well, thanks so much. And please, I announced that we're going to have a Facebook page, Dr. Kirkland Hall, for a delegate, and ask all my supporters to donate generously. There'll be a spot on there for they can donate. So we Brother Otto has $12,000 already in his coffer, and I'm starting with 0. So we need some help. We'll
check in with you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
This has been Delmarva Today. I'm Don Rush. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for watching Delmarva Today, a production of Delmarva Public Radio. Production and audio engineering by Chris Rank. Hosted by Don Rush. For podcasts, visit delmarvapublicradio.net or subscribe to the Delmarva Today podcast on iTunes. Delmarva Today can now be seen on Pack 14.